My name is Susan HayesCulleton, and I want cities to be curious, collaborative and really excited for their future. So my name is Susan HayesCulleton, and I am the Managing Director of the HayesCulleton Group, and within that we run transition year work experiences for teenagers across the country. We also have a peer learning technology that connects people together based on what they know and what they want to learn. And I'm also an economist where I've either authored or co-authored together 5 books. Number 1 is sustainability, and I don't just think that's from a green perspective. I think that it's right across the ESG perspective, environmental, social and governance. How do we make cities more diverse and inclusive, but also where people want to spend their time to bring up their kids to see their futures in, as well as how they're governed. The second key issue is an economic one, namely inflation, but I think it's the knock-on effects of that. It's how cities are funding projects and then finding that maybe they're over budget or they can't find suppliers within their supply chain that are both sustainable and economic. And then also the other things is the impact that it's having on business. Businesses are really struggling with the cost of energy, with some labour shortages or dislocations. So that's also a follow-on impact. And I suppose the third one then, of course, is inflation in house prices, which also makes affordability out of reach, whether you're renting or whether you're buying. So the second issue, I believe, is not just inflation itself, but the knock-on effects. And the third one is competing priorities. And I think we'll always have that one. We've always had it in the past. It's likely we'll always have it in the future. And in one way, it's a healthy thing, the fact that there are competing priorities. But when you have maybe political will that is in contravening to maybe social situations, with environmental constraints as well as economic realities, that can be tough. But that really is the opportunity for people who are very passionate and competent at the top to really lead the way for the future. For a start, teenagers want to be part of conversations around global issues. They're very passionate about the environment. They're very cognizant of what's going on politically. They can be very tolerant. They want and demand social inclusion. They understand different forms of disability. So number 1, I think let's start off by understanding that a younger demographic has as much to say as anybody else. And at any given stage, they're going to be statistically longer on the planet than those people who are telling them what they should be thinking. So first of all, I would say that. Secondly, talk to teenagers where they're at. They're interested in engaging with influencers using Instagram stories. A lot of them are active on Twitter. They talk to each other across Snapchat. They want the adults in the room to take responsibility and to listen to their voice. They're very visual. They like infographics. They like to see how the things they're studying in school comes to life, how decisions are made and how they can be a part of that. So I would say simply take the time to listen to them, speak to them in a language that they understand, tie it into what's relevant for them, and then engage with them in the communication channels where they're most comfortable. Within Savvy Teens, we work with thousands of teenagers every year where we help them focus on careers, communication and confidence through getting work experience in real companies. And the impact of that on cities is, number 1, it really helps them to understand natural career development. More and more we're hearing now people who want to go on to work in UX design or in the Internet of Things or the metaverse or creativity or aviation finance. And these are all quite new careers in terms of parlance and how we talk about them. So by showcasing what the world of work is really like to teenagers, you can really influence their career development and the choices that they make along the way. But the second thing, and I think this is very important, is that teenagers then get to understand what a company is all about. It's not just about profit. It's about people, it's about planet, and it's about profit. It's showing teenagers that companies do a lot of work when it comes to corporate social responsibility, how they have to look into their supply chain for environmentalism, how they are offering a continually reshaped workplace for the talent of tomorrow. And of course, the third thing as well is that we can see how companies look outwards. So whether it's to export, maybe potential global mobility opportunities within their company, how they collaborate at conferences like this to think about opportunities around the world, is I think that can really inspire teenagers then to think, well, I could be part of a global conversation, or I could be working with a team in London or in Abu Dhabi or in Melbourne or in Texas. So for all of those reasons, by showing teenagers a taste of what is possible, it inspires them to reach towards that, but gives them an understanding about their role and responsibility being part of that future too. It's interesting to look forward 10 years, as interesting as it is to look back. When I look back 10 years before, I mean, the country where I'm from, Ireland, we were in a bailout at the time. Nobody had heard of a pandemic called COVID. London was having the Olympics. Hybrid working was very new. Very few people were talking about blockchain. The metaverse was but a glint in our eye. So much has changed in the past 10 years. In some ways, it's difficult to look forward to where we could be in 2032. However, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So when I look at cities around the world who are gaining momentum, I see Belfast as a creativity hub. I see Austin, Texas as a really fast growing Silicon Valley of its own description. I see Abu Dhabi and Dubai having great vision for their architecture. I see Chicago understanding how it can regenerate new design with new aesthetics. And of course, we see lots of countries seeking to be more inclusive, whether that's to do with pronouns or whether it's to do with disability spaces or whether it's to do with conversations about how things are moving forward. So I think in many ways, every city has a great opportunity to be better in 10 years' time. And I think it's a competitive place out there for where to live, where to work, and they don't have to be the same anymore. And the other thing that I think we need to consider is that the metaverse is a world in itself, digital nonetheless, but it's still a world where people will be spending their time. And when you look at the supply chain into the metaverse, more and more companies are thinking more and more creatively about how to maybe sell real estate there or to develop your digital twin, etc. So I think we need to think of it in tandem. But when I look at where cities are and who I think might have the most economic development or attract the most people or investment, etc., I think it's the ones who are creative, the ones who are listening to what their citizens needs, the ones who are really thinking about sustainability, the ones who look at life as work-life balance, whether that's to do with family, travel, experiences, food, etc. And also, of course, the one that is willing to be open and be collaborative and look at best practice around the world and be excited about what can happen.